We'll start with a land acknowledgement, and Missoula County acknowledges that this event takes place on the Aboriginal lands of the Salish and Kalispel people. And with that, would you join me in the pledge? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thanks. Do we have any public announcements? Any public comment on items not on the agenda? Okay, we'll let you all know that from May 20th to May 27th, we have received $1,277,105.93 in claims to Missoula County, and you can go to our website and check out how that money was spent. We have 2 hearings. The first hearing on the Corey Brown family transfer will be explained to us by Matt Heimel.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, everyone. Matt Heimel here with Community Planning Services. I'll go ahead and share my screen for PowerPoint. Just a moment. That's not it. So this is a request from Corey Brown to use the family transfer exemption in the Montana Subdivision and Platting Act. So this proposal would be a division outside of a platted subdivision for single gift or sale of property to Corey's father, Mark Brown. And the property is located about 200 feet east of Highway 10 West at its closest point and is in the Grass Valley area, about 1.3 miles northwest of the Y at the Interstate 90 and Highway 93 interchange. Here's an aerial view of the subject property highlighted in the center, just showing some more broader context for the area. So the existing property is 15.55 acres. The tract is unzoned, and the property is in an area described by the Missoula Area Land Use element from 2019, which was an amendment to the growth policy from 2016. And so the Missoula Area Land Use element designates this parcel with a planned neighborhood designation, which recommends 8 units per acre or greater, which would require connections to public sewer and water. And this proposed division does not strictly comply with the goals and recommendations of the growth policy, but there would still be development potential for growth in accordance with the planned neighborhood land use should infrastructure become available in the future. Here's an image of the existing tract with existing conditions. The property is undeveloped and there is no existing physical access that is developed, and the applicant proposes to provide access to Highway 10 West through a private access easement that is currently undeveloped that is located along the south property boundary. This image shows the proposed tracts layout. So the proposed transfer would result in 2 total tracts. The parent tract, which would remain under ownership by the claimant, Corey, would be reduced to approximately 11.05 acres on the east portion of the property. And then the tract to be transferred to the claimant's father, Mark, would be about 4.5 acres in the northwest section of the property, as you can see, divided by the red line. And the applicant has stated that the transfer tract is intended for residential use. So any subdivision exemption affidavit gets reviewed against criteria for the evasion of subdivision review. And in our review of this proposal, we identified 4 of those criteria, and I'll touch on each one, and then I'll have some questions for the claimants after I go through these. So the first criteria was that the proposed division is on a tract that was previously created through use of a family transfer exemption and has received preliminary plat approval. So this parcel was originally created through a family transfer exemption in 1992, and the tract was preliminary plat approval in 2008. The second criteria is that the claimant is in the business of constructing, dividing. Let me restate that. So one of the criteria is whether or not the claimant is in the business of constructing or dividing, developing, or selling land. And while the application doesn't really directly indicate this, the claimant is a registered agent of a excavation company, so not necessarily a subdivider going to subdivide, develop, and sell land. The third criteria is whether the original tract was transferred to the claimant within the past 2 years. And I'd like to point out that there is a date typo in the staff analysis. This criteria does still apply. The claimant was acquired the property through a warranty deed on November 29th of 2018. And the analysis on this portion erroneously states that it was by quitclaim deed in November of 2019. So the correct ownership history is the claimant acquired through a warranty deed November of 2018, still within the last 2 years. And the fourth and final criteria for this is that an exempt division for this tract has previously been denied. So this image shows the proposed conditions for a former family transfer proposal that was denied in August of 2019. So the county commissioners denied a request by Corey Brown to create 5 additional tracts through the use of the family transfer exemption. So there would be 5 new tracts, 4 of which were proposed to go to children who are minors, and 1 of the tracts was going to go to the claimant's father, and the current configuration, which I'll go back to, is, like we said, only for 1 new tract. And so in the deliberations from August of 2019 for the last proposal, the board found that the evidence to support denial relied heavily on the transfer to children that are minors and the number of lots proposed. And the proposal before us today is just for one new tract to an adult who is the claimant's father. So that concludes my presentation of the application, and I now have some questions to ask for the claimant.
Yes, this is Corey.
Hi, Corey. Could you just please state your full name for the record?
Corey Brown.
Okay, thanks. I have 5 questions for you. So the first,
Okay.
Did you buy the property with the intent of dividing it?
No.
Thank you. Do you or your transferee intend to transfer the property within the next year?
No.
Thank you. Have you talked to anyone at the county about going through subdivision review?
No. Except in our last meeting, like the last time I applied.
Okay. And will the property be developed?
The transferred property?
Yes.
Yeah, my dad's gonna build his residence there.
And I know you just touched on it, but the last question, will the recipient of the property be residing on the property?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. That concludes my
Thank you.
questions. So commissioners, based on the facts as presented in the exemption affidavit and contained in our analysis, there does not appear to be an attempt to evade subdivision review, and staff is recommending that the requested family transfer be approved as proposed. And I can take any questions from here.
Do we have any comment from Mr. Brown or his representative?
Nope. Just, I think the last time we went around this process, I had a bunch of I had my 4 children that I was trying to give parcels to, and I think in that whole time we discussed that proposal, it was pretty well affirmed that my dad has every intention of wanting to build a house there, and still does, and would like to move forward as soon as possible. So that's why I've reapplied, asking for this exemption so I can give him this parcel so he can build a house.
Thanks. Gabe or Juan, do you have questions?
No, unless there's other public comment out there on it, I do not.
No, I don't either.
I'd say I appreciate the straightforwardness of this.
John
Commissioner-
Hart wanted to say
This
something.
is John Hart. I would just like to add to Matt Heimel's presentation, because I want you to start thinking in terms of the evasion criteria when you review exemption applications. You may do that already, so this may just be noise to you, but I just want to point out that for purposes of a family transfer exemption application, there are 8 rebuttable presumptions, and those are outlined in Chapter 8 of the Missoula County Subdivision Regulations. And Matt talked about just one of the 8, and that's because the analysis of his office was that just one of the 8 rebuttable presumptions was triggered in their review, and that was the one that found that the original parcel was created through a family transfer. So I want to point out, in terms of the rebuttable presumption, that there were 7 others that were not triggered. And I think for brevity, because those are analyzed in the staff report that you have in your packet, I think Matt doesn't hit all of them. He just hits the ones that are triggered. And then we move on to the evasion criteria, and there are 20 evasion criteria, and at least one of those has some subparts to it. So there's in excess of 20 different evasion criteria that we have in our subdivision regulations for family transfer exemptions. And Matt touched on the 3 of those 20 plus criteria that were actually triggered. But I just did want to make the point that there are the majority of these were not triggered, but nonetheless, Matt does not go through each one of them verbatim and point out that they're not triggered. So I just thought I would add that for what it was worth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then that makes me question again, Matt, the mistake, are we looking at the mistaken date, or do you have the correct date? I can't remember what date it is.
I stated the correct date into the record. The highlighted criteria in the analysis has an incorrect date, but the correct that I'm stating here is acquired through a warranty deed on November 29th of 2018.
Okay, thanks. So I thank you, John, for reminding us of that or explaining that. I'd make a motion to recommend that the request by Mr. Brown to utilize family transfer be approved.
Is there, Josh, was there any other public comment?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Sorry, is there any other comment on this?
Okay, I guess without any, I would second the motion and do appreciate the reapplication.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you, Mr. Heimel. Thank you, Mr. Hart.
Thank you guys very much. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, we have our own Tim Worley to talk to us about Gallatin Estates.
Hi, Commissioners. For the record, Tim Worley with CAPS. And I'll share my screen here. This is Gallatin Estates Phasing Plan Extension, which is a request by Joy Earls on behalf of the Crofts family. The property in question is northwest of the Y on Waldo Road. Some businesses you may be familiar with in the vicinity are the Muralt Travel Plaza on the east side of Highway 93 and Jellystone RV Park on the west side of 93. This is the preliminary plat. It was approved in 2013, and that's a correction I should make. I think when we spoke last about this, commissioners, I mentioned that it was approved in 2012. It was actually early 2013. The approval was for 70 lots on just over 33 acres, and it was divided into 3 phases. Phasing plan deadlines are currently June 30th of this year for phase 1, June 30th, 2022 for phase 2, and June 30th, 2025 for phase 3. And the proposal is to extend the submittal deadlines for phases 1 and 2 to June 30th, 2023. Phase 3 would not change. We found that this request meets the extension criteria. There are no significant changes that have occurred in the area of the subdivision or are expected to occur, and the timelines proposed meet the regulations. We did get one comment from Montana Department of Transportation. They confirmed that Waldo Road is now a state road. It used to be a county road. A traffic study may or may not be required with the subdivision. And I should clarify that there's actually a condition for an updated traffic study for the subdivision that must be submitted prior to phase 1. MDT will require an approach permit application with proposed numbers generated by the subdivision to begin their review process. And the study will touch on the intersection of Waldo Road and Gallatin Drive, which is basically the access point for this subdivision to Waldo. And they'll also take a look at the US 93 and Waldo Road intersection, which is to the east of this subdivision. There was some interest in elaborating on the relationship of O'Keefe Ranch Estates subdivision, which is an approved preliminary plat to the east of Gallatin Estates. And this graphic shows the relationship of the 2 subdivisions. O'Keefe Ranch Estates is about 200 lots. It, like Gallatin, has not filed a lot. So what you see on the landscape currently is just essentially open land within these 2 parent parcels. In summary, staff's recommendation is for approval. And commissioners, there is your main motion that the final plat submittal deadlines for Gallatin Estates phase 1 and phase 2 be extended to June 30th, 2023 based on the findings of fact in the staff summary. Let me know if you have any questions.
Sorry, I have a tricky mouse.
Ms.
Tim,
Earls, would you? Oh, go for it, Juan.
I was just wondering if Tim could go back to the 2 that show the subdivision further to the east. Thank you. And is that my screen is super small. I'm sorry. Is that O'Keefe Creek is the blue line, or is that a road?
O'Keefe Creek is right here. I don't know if you can see my cursor. Let me do the control click trick on that, which there's the trace of O'Keefe right there, I believe.
Oh, thank you.
And then I don't think it necessarily matches up perfectly between these 2 plats, but I think this might be it here.
Now I see it. Okay, thank you. And then the intersection that's going to be studied, where's that again?
The first intersection is right here, although I should point out that Waldo has been completely reconstructed, so a lot of these curves have actually been eliminated from Waldo Road. And then the second intersection, and probably the more important intersection to be studied, is Waldo and 93, which is actually off this graphic.
Okay, thank you.
Joy, do you have anything to speak to on this?
No, I think that was a great overview.
All right, so I just wanted to ask you a question, Joy. Could you describe the reasoning for the delay or that ask for an extension?
The reason, yes, we've had it for sale, and right now we do have a prospective buyer. We are under contract with the property. So, you know, they're in their due diligence process right now. But prior to this, we did not have a buyer, and the current sellers were not in a position to continue the project. So that's why it was on hold. And it was also during the, you know, when they started this project, it was in the 2008 slump, and then it took quite a while to come back. But now we see a great need for these types of lots. So there has been quite an interest in the property. So I guess the whole market's changed, and now we see this that it could come about at this point, and shows with having a buyer now in place.
Okay. Thanks. Dave or Juan, do you have any questions?
No, I have no questions.
Nope, thank you. Well then, I'm sorry.
Is there any public
Any
comment?
public comment? I don't think so.
Okay, well, I will go ahead and move that the final plat submittal deadlines for Gallatin Estates Phase 1 and Phase 2 be extended to June 30th, 2023, based on the findings of fact in the staff summary.
Second.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Here we go. Thanks, Joy and
Thank you.
Leland and Jen. All right, I do believe that's all our hearings. Do we have anything else that I've missed?
Wow, that was fast.
I know. Bam, bam. I think we're done.
They were so straightforward.
Yeah, that was really nice and smooth, not thorny at all. So, Dave and Ron, what time is our call this afternoon?